Before anything else, hit the like button right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because that helps a lot to keep this kind of content up and running, and make sure you don't miss any important update about what's happening in the NBA and, most importantly, with the Golden State Warriors. Something really out of the ordinary is happening at this point in the season. It's not just another stretch of bad games. It's not simply one random loss or a normal regular season slip. There's a set of signs, quotes, numbers, and situations that, when you put it all together, starts to form a much deeper picture. And interestingly, that picture might be taking shape at the most perfect possible moment for the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors' first game since Jimmy Butler's serious anterior cruciate ligament injury already gave us a clear snapshot of where the team is right now. It was a tough loss against the Toronto Raptors, but a loss that, if you look at it calmly, says far more than the final score suggests. Toronto simply had a ridiculous night, completely outside the norm. They shot over 50% from three-point range, didn't miss a single free throw the entire game, and even so, Golden State managed to compete, managed to stay alive in the game at several moments. That alone stands out. When an opponent has an almost perfect shooting performance and you still don't get steamrolled from the first quarter, there's something there. It's not enough to win, of course, but it shows the team isn't dead, isn't done, isn't out of options. And in the middle of this complicated scenario, one name showed up as a true bright spot: Jonathan Kuminga. This was his first game since December 18th, after basically a month out, and the impact was immediate. Aggressive, confident, attacking the rim, scoring efficiently. He didn't look like a player coming back from injury. He looked like someone trying to send a message, and that, ironically, makes the franchise's decisions even more complicated. Because until recently, the message seemed clear. Kuminga is a trade asset, someone who could unlock a major deal. But now, after a performance like that, the inevitable doubt shows up. Is it really worth letting him go? Could keeping this player, betting on internal growth, actually be the best path? That question gets even heavier when you look at the roster context. Buddy Hield, for example, had an excellent game. He was one of the most consistent players of the night, shooting really well from deep, providing spacing and offensive confidence. On the other hand, core names like Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Brandon Podziemski clearly struggled. Their impact was smaller than usual, whether because of missed shots or rhythm issues. But before we dive deep into the box score, it's impossible to ignore a character who, even without stepping on the court in this game, hangs over this entire story like a shadow: Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's a very strong mutual respect between Giannis and Stephen Curry. After the Warriors' 2022 title, Giannis himself publicly said something that carries real weight coming from a player of his caliber. He stated that Stephen Curry was, at that moment, the best player on the planet. And it wasn't an empty compliment. He explained that, to be the best in the world, you have to show up on the biggest stage possible and deliver at the highest level. And that's exactly what Curry did that season. When you compare the stats from that year to what Steph has been producing now, the resemblance is striking, even with ups and downs. Even with occasional bad games like this one against Toronto, the overall level is still very high. And more than that, he had already been playing at an elite level in last season's playoffs before the injury that cut that run short. But while Curry keeps proving on the court that he can still lead a competitive team, something very strange has been happening on the other side in Milwaukee. Giannis Antetokounmpo has, for some time now, been giving increasingly short, cold, and enigmatic answers to the press. And that isn't common for a player who, in theory, should be completely committed to the franchise's future. The talks about a possible trade involving Giannis aren't new. They've existed since the title he won years ago, but now the tone has changed. When he was asked directly whether he plans to finish the season with the Milwaukee Bucks, the answer was short, direct, and worrying. I don't know. For Bucks fans, that sounds like a red alert flashing nonstop. In another interview, he was asked about the fact that other teams are holding back market moves while waiting for a decision from him. The answer was even more distant. He said he can't control what other teams do, that he's just trying to focus on his own job and win games. And when they pressed again, asking how confident he was that he'd finish the season with the Bucks, the answer was basically the same. I don't know. I'm taking it day by day. When a player of that size starts talking like that, repeatedly, it's never by accident. There's a pattern there. There's clear discomfort. And when you connect that with a Warriors team that just lost Jimmy Butler to a devastating injury, that has interesting assets, draft picks, and an urgent need to maximize the final years of Stephen Curry, the idea starts taking shape in any fan's mind. Imagine a scenario where Golden State puts something on the table like Jimmy Butler, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and a heavy package of first-round picks. In some versions of that scenario, the name Miles Turner also enters to balance salaries and roster needs. That's not a small offer. It's an aggressive, risky move, but one that completely changes the franchise's level overnight. The big question is, would that be enough for Milwaukee to let go of Giannis? That's not a simple answer. On one side, you'd be receiving a Jimmy Butler who's already in a later stage of his career coming off a serious injury. A Jonathan Kuminga who is young and talented, but still inconsistent and divisive. A Brandon Podziemski who brings a lot of good things on the court and has a valuable contract. And of course, several first-round picks that help rebuild the future. On the other side, you'd be giving up one of the most dominant players in the NBA today. Someone who completely changes a franchise's destiny. So the question becomes almost philosophical. Do the Bucks want to keep trying around Giannis at any cost, or would they reach a point where the priority becomes maximizing return and restarting? This debate isn't only in fans' heads. Internally, the signals are starting to appear too. Recent statements from the Warriors front office make it clear that if a truly special player becomes available, the team is willing to go all the way. The message is simple. They won't move for just anything, but they're ready to go big for the right name. And when people talk about the right name, it's impossible not to think about Giannis Antetokounmpo. In this context, league analysts have already started to simplify the picture in a very direct way. Golden State won't make a major move now unless Giannis actually hits the market in the next few weeks. Other options exist, of course. Names like DeMar DeRozan, Anthony Davis, among others, come up in conversations, but all of them come with serious caveats, whether because of injuries, fit, or real long-term impact. Meanwhile, the team keeps playing, trying to adjust to a new reality without Jimmy Butler. And that's where we go back to the court and to what we saw against the Toronto Raptors. Despite the loss, some signs are impossible to ignore. Jonathan Kuminga finished the night with 20 points, 5 rebounds, good shooting efficiency, and only a few ball control issues. 20 points in 20 minutes in the first game after nearly a month out, in the middle of all this external noise. That's not trivial. That gets attention inside and outside the franchise. Early on, you could see he was nervous. He badly missed a free throw, looked out of rhythm, but then he settled down, found the game, and started to truly impact it. It was a clear response. Almost a message. Stephen Curry, on the other hand, had an off night. In 25 minutes, only 16 points, 6 for 16 shooting, and limited impact in other areas. Draymond Green struggled too. He couldn't score from outside, had offensive difficulties, some decision-making mistakes. It's the kind of game that happens, but it weighs even more when the roster is short-handed. Jimmy Butler, unfortunately, is a chapter of his own. The numbers are discouraging, and more than that, the feeling is that maybe the fans won't see him wearing a Warriors jersey on the court again. It's a tough situation, emotionally heavy, especially considering the expectations that existed when he arrived. Other players tried to contribute. DeAnthony Melton had a few good moments as a creator, dished out assists, but suffered too much with turnovers and bad shots. Moses Moody couldn't stand out. The roster did what it could, but when the opponent has a historic shooting night, there isn't much you can do. Toronto's box score is almost absurd. 21 threes on 34 attempts, 22 free throws made on 22 attempts. Emmanuel Quickley had the best night of his career with 40 points, near-perfect efficiency, and an impact that killed any attempt at a more consistent Warriors comeback. And even so, Despite all of that, the game wasn't the total blowout many people would expect. There were moments of pushback, moments of hope, moments where it felt like they could close the gap. That says a lot, because the question hanging in the air is exactly this. How do you turn competitive but insufficient nights into something truly special? Do you bet on Kuminga's development? Do you believe he can make the definitive leap? Or do you understand the clock is ticking? That Stephen Curry won't play forever, and that this might be the only real chance to put two superstars of that caliber on the same team? That reflection doesn't go away after a loss. It only grows. This is the real crossroads the Golden State Warriors are facing right now. It's not a simple discussion about winning or losing one specific game, nor about reacting to one isolated defeat. It's a structural, almost historic decision involving time, legacy, and opportunity. And it all starts to make sense when you look at the full season context and the exact moment these things are happening. The Warriors leave this game against Toronto with a 6-2 home record. Looking only at the cold number, it's not bad. On the contrary, it's solid. But when you go deeper, you realize that 6-2 could easily have been even better if a few variables had clicked just a little more. And that's exactly where the frustration lives, and at the same time, the hope. Because the team doesn't look far from being competitive. It doesn't look like a roster without direction. The problem is that competing isn't enough when you have Stephen Curry. With a player of that level, the goal is never just to fight for the playoffs or to have respectable games. The goal is to contend for a title, always. And when you watch how some games are slipping away, how certain matchups demand something more than collective effort, it becomes clear what's missing, that second dominant pillar. Someone who, in moments of chaos, absorbs pressure, bends the opponent's defense, slows the game down when everything starts to fall apart. That's why the name Giannis Antetokounmpo comes up so strongly in this debate. Not because of fan fantasy, but because of real fit. His style solves problems the Warriors have today. Overwhelming physical presence, paint dominance, constant pressure on opposing defenses, and a gravity that would open Stephen Curry's game in a way the entire league understands very well. And most importantly, the timing. Everything points to a rare moment. It's not common for a player of that caliber to show such clear signs of uncertainty about his own future. It's not common to hear answers that vague, that open, that uncommitted when the topic is staying with a team. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens when there's wear, when frustration has built up, when the project no longer convinces like it used to. In Milwaukee, the official line still tries to maintain normality, but the subtext tells another story. Giannis has already said on other occasions that he doesn't want to spend his entire career comfortable if there isn't a real chance to compete for titles. He's made it clear he isn't interested only in individual stats or status. And when you combine that with a situation where the East remains competitive, but the Bucks look increasingly limited in growth options, the doubt starts to make sense. On the Warriors' side, Jimmy Butler's injury changes the entire board. What could have been a gradual plan now becomes urgent. Nobody expected to lose a player with that kind of impact for so long, and when a piece that big falls, the franchise has to react. Standing still isn't an option. That's where performances like Jonathan Kuminga's in this game become so important. Because while he proves his value on the court, he also raises his value as an asset. Whether to stay or to go, he places himself at the center of the conversation. He's no longer just a generic young player. He's someone who, when called on, answered. That creates an interesting paradox. The better Kuminga plays, the harder it is to decide to trade him. But at the same time, the better he plays, the more attractive he becomes to another team in a big negotiation. Situations like this tend to accelerate decisions, and the Warriors' front office knows it. The internal conversation starts revolving around a simple but heavy question: how far are we willing to go? Use every available first-round pick, give up promising young players, compromise the post-Curry future in exchange for a real window right now? These aren't theoretical questions. They need quick answers, because the league doesn't wait. Other teams are watching too. Other teams have assets too. If Giannis truly becomes available, a line will form. And even if other options show up on the market, few come close to the impact he would bring. Names like DeMar DeRozan offer scoring, experience, leadership. Anthony Davis, when healthy, is dominant. But both come with clear limitations: age, injury history, defensive fit, continuity. None of it is simple. Giannis, on the other hand, is still in his physical prime. He still changes games on his own. He still forces entire defenses to adapt to him. And more. Playing next to Stephen Curry could extend the prime of both. One would complement the other almost perfectly. Spacing, strength, intelligence, offensive gravity. It's the kind of combination the entire league fears. Coming back to the game against Toronto, it works almost like a mirror of this whole situation. A night where the opponent does everything right, where some of the Warriors' main players don't deliver what's expected, but where the team still doesn't collapse. That shows character, shows foundation, but it also exposes the current limit. When a player like Emmanuel Quickley, who had been having an inconsistent season, explodes for 40 points on absurd efficiency, you realize how cruel basketball can be sometimes. But you also realize that, in the playoffs, that kind of thing is less likely to happen over and over. There, what decides is stars, adjustments, elite talent. And that's exactly what's missing to turn this Warriors team into a true contender. Not effort, not desire, not system. That difference maker who flips entire series. The feeling for anyone following this team closely is mixed. Frustration over Jimmy Butler's injury, worry about the immediate present, but also a strange sense that something big might be forming, that the current chaos could be the catalyst for a massive change. Because if there's ever a moment where it's worth betting everything, that moment usually comes when nobody expects it, when the situation feels unstable, when the answers aren't clear, when a superstar starts saying, "I don't know," to questions that used to have automatic answers. Stephen Curry's clock is ticking, not in a dramatic way, but in a real way. Every season matters. Every window counts. And opportunities like this don't show up twice. In the end, the game against Toronto will go into the records as just another loss. But its context, what it reveals about the roster, the franchise's moment, and the possibilities ahead, goes far beyond that. Now I want to hear from you. If you've been following all of this, if you understand how big this decision is, hit the like button right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell, because this story is far from over, and the next few weeks could completely change the future of the Golden State Warriors. Kai Sotto has been drawing attention for his talent and the potential to become a dominant center in the league. Standing at 7'3", he's not only a rim protector but also a player who has greatly improved offensively. The question is, would he fit into the Warriors system? We know that adapting to the NBA is not easy, especially for a player coming from an international background, but Kai has already shown that he faces challenges head-on. Since beginning his professional basketball career, he has displayed an impressive learning curve and a growth mindset that could make all the difference. The Warriors always prioritize versatile players who know how to move well without the ball and contribute on both ends of the court. And that's where Kai Sotto could shine. He's not just a traditional center who protects the paint, but also a mobile and intelligent player capable of helping with offensive plays. The big question now is, who will give Kai Sotto this chance? The Warriors could benefit from a young and promising center, but other teams may also be eyeing him. What's certain is that he has all the potential to grow in the NBA, as long as he gets the right opportunity. Kai Sotto's future is promising, but he still needs to find the team and system that best suit his style. If the Warriors decide to give him a chance, it could not only strengthen the roster, but also bring a new dynamic to Golden State's front court. After all, with the Warriors' winning mentality, the sky is the limit for any young talent. So, did you like the video? Don't waste any time and hit the like button because it helps a lot with spreading the word. If you have anything to add or want to share your opinion, leave a comment. We love hearing what you think. And of course, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates about our team. See you next time, everyone. Let's go together towards another great season.